Welcome back to Nature Documentary for Sleep. If you enjoy these late-night landscapes, leave a comment and consider liking and subscribing. Tonight, you're stepping into the Atacama Desert, where surviving is mostly about managing physics. It's pre-dawn near San Pedro, and you're riding in a pickup with cold air drying your throat. You shoulder a small pack, check your radio once, and follow a line of flags into a silence that feels enormous. The ground isn't flat, it's salt-crusted polygons with soft voids that can take an ankle. Each breath tastes faintly mineral, and your water doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like schedule. As the sun clears the Andes, the cold collapses, and the heat arrives without any humidity to slow it down. You keep walking anyway, on an uplifted seabed, under air so dry that sweat disappears before you can notice it. When your bottle gets lighter than it should, what fails first in the Atacama? Navigation, cooling, or the simple math of evaporation versus intake? You think the first problem will be thirst, dramatic and obvious, like a movie? But the Atacama starts smaller than that, with friction and distraction. A boot scrapes salt, and the crust answers with a hollow crunch. Your next step drops 2 inches, not dangerous, just enough to steal rhythm. You correct, your ankle rolls, and you feel a thin sting up your shin. Not an injury yet, just the desert taking a receipt. The flags ahead are simple, bright fabric on thin stakes. In this light, they look close, like you could touch them in 10 minutes. You walk for 15, and the distance does not change. That is the first escalation, the horizon line to your face. The driver who dropped you off is long gone now. The tire tracks vanish behind a low ripple of salt. Your radio is silent because there is nothing to talk to yet, and you realize the route is not a trail. It is an agreement. If you stop honoring it, you are improvising in a place that hates improv. You lift your scarf higher over your mouth, not for warmth now, but for moisture. It feels ridiculous, like trying to save money by unplugging a toaster. Still, you do it because the air is stealing water from you mid-exhale. The sun climbs, and your shadow shrinks until it fits under your feet. The desert is telling you it is almost noon already, even when it is not. A few minutes later, you notice the taste in your mouth change. Less dust, more metal, like you licked a coin. That is salt and minerals, yes, but it is also your lips cracking. You swallow, and the swallow feels loud. You take a sip, small and measured, and the water is already warm. It does not refresh you, it just resets the clock in your throat. You keep your pace slow on purpose. Fast walking feels heroic for exactly 12 minutes. Then it feels like a bad decision you cannot return. The flags lead you toward a pale expanse, the edge of the salar. From here, it looks like a frozen lake, smooth and bright. Up close, it is broken into hexagons, like the skin of a dead giant. Between the plates are seams of softer crust. You probe with your boot before committing weight. The seam gives, and you hear a faint sucking sound. That sound is the desert reminding you there is space under the crust, salt above, void below, and sometimes brine you do not want to meet. You angle around it, following the flags more tightly now. Each careful step costs time, and time costs water. So you do the math in your head, and the math is not kind. You were told to reach a remote weather station before noon, not because noon is special, but because afternoon turns navigation into a trick. Wind rises, glare intensifies, and you start making decisions you cannot audit. You look back again, and the landscape has already erased your confidence. San Pedro is not visible, and the road is not visible. Only the Andes sit behind you, huge and indifferent, like they always have. They are a wall of stone that steals storms and then watches you ration water. You tell yourself this is just a walk to an instrument tower. It is maintenance, not an expedition. But your throat keeps insisting this is something older than paperwork. A gust comes off the flats and touches your face like a dry hand. It carries no coolness, only motion. Your eyes water reflexively, which is almost funny. Your body is trying to lubricate a world that does not deserve it. You blink hard, and the eyelashes feel gritty. That grit is salt dust, fine enough to live in the folds of your eyelids. You stop for a moment behind a low hump of crust. There is no real shelter, but it breaks the wind by a few percent. You check your radio again, just to feel less alone. Only static, a clean hiss, like the planet breathing. Then you check your pack, the weight of it, the balance. Water, a few energy bars, a light jacket, a small repair kit, a compass, a paper map, because batteries are a fragile religion, and a sun hood that makes you look like a cautious ghost. You put the hood on anyway. The sun here does not feel warm. It feels close. It presses on your skin with a steady confidence. As you step back onto the flagged line, you see it, a shimmer ahead, low and blue, like spilled sky. It pools in a shallow basin, and it moves like water. Your brain lights up, desperate and pleased. Your eyes say lake, your mouth says yes, but your skin says no, because the air is still bone dry. You keep walking, and the lake does not get nearer. It slides away with your approach, a polite illusion. That is your second escalation. Mirage, the desert moving inside your vision. You do not chase it because you are not new to being lied to. Still, your pace changes, subtle, almost unconscious. You drift a little, following the shimmer like a stray thought. Then you catch yourself and correct back to the flags. That small correction costs you 100 yards of wasted effort. 100 yards here is not distance, it is a deduction. Your bottle shifts in your pack and you feel the slosh. Less than before, you did not drink that much. The Atacama is teaching you that loss is not always felt. Sweat does not bead on your skin because it cannot. It evaporates as soon as it arrives, like a secret. So you cannot use sweat as a warning light. You will not feel yourself overheating until you are already behind. You pull your sleeves down, even as heat rises. Covered skin loses less water, and sunburn is just another form of leakage. You tighten your hat strap under your chin. The wind is not strong yet, but it will be. The flagged route leads toward a low ridge you assumed was close. Now you see, it is not a ridge, it is a sequence of ridges. They stack like paper cutouts, each one hiding another. Distance dilates in the dry air because haze is absent. Usually the atmosphere softens edges and tells your brain what is far. Here the air is too clear and your depth perception gets cocky. You keep going anyway, because stopping is not rest. Stopping is standing still while the sun does accounting. After another stretch of walking, you notice something that should not matter. The sound of your boots has changed. Less crunch, more scrape, like sandpaper on stone. The salt crust thins and gravel appears. Dark pebbles, volcanic, sharp. This is not just a desert, it is a museum floor of old violence. The Andes are still rising behind you, slowly, like a person standing up after a long movie. And the reason they rise is the reason you are dry. Out to the west, beyond what you can see, cold ocean water moves north. The Humboldt Current, a conveyor of chill, keeps the coast wrapped in fog. Cool air hugs the sea, warm air sits above it, and moisture gets trapped low. An inversion layer, like a lid on a pot that never boils. Then the Andes grab whatever storms try to cross from the east. They wring them out over greener lands and leave you with leftovers. You are not in a place with no water on Earth. You are in a place where water is constantly being redirected elsewhere. A theft stretched over thousands of years, perfected by physics. You tell yourself this because explanation feels like control. But control is mostly imaginary out here. Like the lake ahead, a thin line appears on the horizon, straight and dark. At first, you think it is another mirage artifact. Then it stays, even when you blink. A road, not paved, not friendly, but a mining road, carved into the emptiness. It runs across your path at an angle, like a sentence underlining itself. This is your first real decision point. You can stay with the flags, trusting whoever placed them, or you can aim for the road as a navigational anchor. The station is supposed to be beyond the ridges. A road suggests humans, and humans suggest solutions, even bad ones. You look at the flags again, fluttering weakly. They are honest, but they are also fragile. A few broken stakes, one missing flag, and you are following nothing. The road is ugly, but it is permanent. In a way fabric is not. You choose the road, not because it is safer, but because it is legible. You angle off the flagged line, counting steps, checking your compass. You tell yourself you can return to the flags after you touch the road. Just a quick recalibration. The ground gets looser as you approach, more gravel, less crust. Your boots slide a little, and you feel your calves working harder. Work means heat, and heat means water. You slow again, irritated, because the desert punishes impatience. When you finally reach the road, it is 2 pale tracks in dirt. The dirt is powdered rock, fine enough to puff with each step. Tire marks are visible, but they look old. The edges are softened, like the wind has been sanding them for days. You crouch and touch the soil. It is dry all the way down, no coolness, no damp layer. Your fingers come up dusty, and you wipe them on your pants. Then you notice something that makes your stomach sink. The tracks mostly go one direction. There are deep impressions heading east toward the interior, but fewer returning west. This is not a busy road. It is a road used by machines that do not commute. They go out, they stay out, and they do not care about your timing. You stand and scan the horizon for a plume of dust. Nothing. Only heat shimmer, a constant trembling of air near the ground. The road is not rescue. It is just proof that humans have been stubborn here too. And stubbornness is not the same as survival. A wind begins to rise from the west. It starts as a gentle push on your left cheek. Then it becomes a steady pressure, carrying grit that taps your teeth. You turn your head and the grit hits your ear, sharp. Salt and sand, ground small, delivered efficiently. You pull your scarf tighter and it muffles your breathing. Each inhale feels like drinking through cloth. You look back toward the flags and you can still see them. Barely. Small bright points in a glare field. The detour has not killed you yet, but it has stolen time. You weigh your options again, and the desert waits politely. You decide to use the road only as a reference. You take a bearing, align it with the station's approximate direction. Then you leave the road, stepping back into open ground. It feels like walking away from the only signpost in a blank book. But the flags are no longer where you are, and you already chose. Now you have to make the choice work. The wind strengthens, and your eyes start to sting. You put on your sunglasses, and the world goes darker. That helps with glare, but it also hides subtle terrain changes. The ground dips gently, and you do not notice until you are in it. A shallow swale of softer sediment, like flour. Your boots sink, and each step becomes a small lift. You climb out the other side and feel your heart rate spike. You stop, because your body is spending water like it is free. You take another sip, smaller than the last, and now you feel it. A quiet panic. The bottle is lighter in your hand than it should be. Not empty, not yet, but wrong. You did not drink enough to justify this, which means you are losing more than you can sense. Evaporation is winning, and you cannot see the scoreboard. You glance up toward the ridges again. They are closer now, finally. Their slopes are bare, streaked with pale minerals and dark rock bands. You aim for a notch between two low rises, thinking it might guide you through. As you walk, the air thins without ceremony. You do not feel altitude like a switch flipping. You feel it like a delay in your thoughts. You inhale, and the inhale is not satisfying. You try again, deeper, and it still feels incomplete. The Atacama is not just dry, it is high. A high desert where the sky is nearer and your lungs are asked to do overtime. Your head starts to throb, a small pulse behind the eyes. Heat, yes, but also oxygen debt. You slow, again, annoyed at your own biology. Congratulations, you are a mammal. The Andes do not care. You find a small cluster of rocks and stop beside them. From a distance, it looked like a shelter. Up close, it is just boulders scattered like someone dropped them. No wall, no alcove, no shade. Still, you crouch in their lee because the wind is slightly less cruel there. You eat a bite of an energy bar. It tastes like sweetened cardboard, and it sticks to your teeth. You chew slowly because saliva is precious now. Swallowing feels like dragging food down a dry tube. You take one more tiny sip to help it. Then you force yourself to stop because the bottle is not a friend. It is a budget. You check your compass again, confirm the notch in the ridge. You check the map, matching lines to shapes. The station should be beyond this rise. on a higher shoulder. You tell yourself that once you crest, you will see the tower. Seeing it would turn uncertainty into a line you can follow. You stand, and your legs feel heavy for no good reason. That heaviness is your body saving itself by slowing you down. You start upward, careful on loose rock. The wind carries more grit here, and it stings your cheeks. Each gust sounds like someone pouring sand onto a drum. Your radio crackles once, a brief burst of static that feels like a voice. You lift it quickly, thumb the button, and listen. Nothing. Then you realize the ridge is blocking signal. Terrain does that, casually, the same way it blocks roads, blocks storms, blocks you. You keep climbing, because turning back now costs almost the same as pressing on. Downhill is not free. When your path is uncertain, you reach the notch and step through. On the other side, the world opens into another broad basin. Not relief, just more space to cross. The basin looks poured, like someone emptied a bag of pale dust between two ridgelines and walked away. The wind follows you in, funneling through the notch, then spreading out across the open ground. It is not a dramatic wind yet. It is the kind that convinces you to ignore it, right up until it starts charging interest. You take 3 steps, and the grit is already working into your socks. You take 10, and the air tastes sharper, like powdered stone. Your eyes track the far side of the basin, searching for anything vertical. A tower? A fence line? A mistake. Instead, you get a low, dark smear of rock that might be a lava flow, or might be shadow. You start walking toward it anyway, because the brain loves edges. Open space makes you feel exposed, and your body wants a boundary to lean on. The ground under you shifts from gravel to a crust that looks solid, then back to gravel again. Every change in texture is the desert asking you to pay attention. And every time you pay attention, you slow down, you check the sun without thinking, and you hate what you see. It is no longer early. The light has that hard, high angle, the one that erases depth and makes everything look close. Your mouth goes dry again, even though it never stopped being dry. You swallow, and it feels like swallowing fabric. You take another sip, careful, controlled. The water is not cold. It is not even neutral. It tastes like plastic warmed by sunlight, like a rain barrel left in a shed. Your stomach accepts it without gratitude. Your skin does not feel sweaty. It feels tight, like it is being shrink-wrapped. That is the trick your cooling system is working, but it leaves no evidence. Evaporation steals the proof. You keep a steady pace and count steps because counting is a way to stay awake. 100 steps, then a micropause. Another 100, then a micropause. Not rest, just a reset. You tell yourself you are being smart, but you are also bargaining with a place that has never negotiated. A darker patch of ground approaches, and you feel relief before you earn it. When you reach it, you see it is not shade. It is rock, blackened, porous, and sharp as broken ceramic. The heat above it shimmers differently. The air over the dark stone is a faint, wavering curtain. You step onto it and feel the temperature jump through your soles. It is like walking on a sun-baked griddle that cannot cook you quickly, only thoroughly. The rock is vesicular, full of holes where gas once fled. It looks lightweight. It is not. It is dense enough to carry heat like a grudge. You pick your way across, placing each foot like you are stepping over glass. One slip would not just cut you. It would cost sweat, blood, time, and focus. 4 currencies. And you are already short on 3. The wind hits your left side harder now. It carries a faint metallic smell, almost like warm pennies. You think it is your imagination, the way hunger makes you smell food that is not there. Then you realize it is real. It is the scent of minerals in the dust, iron, copper, and salts that have been ground down for millions of years. The desert is not empty. It is finely processed. You crest a small rise of black rock, and the basin beyond is even wider. The far edge is lined with low hills, pale and banded. Above them, the first true volcanoes begin to show themselves. Not just mountains, cones, symmetrical, clean, almost cartoonish, if cartoons were drawn by tectonics. They sit in the distance like sealed vents. They do not smoke, they do not rumble. They just watch. You stop without meaning to. Part of you wants to admire them. The other part wants to remember that admiration burns daylight. You force yourself forward again, heading for a shallow saddle between 2 pale hills. If you can reach that saddle, you tell yourself you will finally see the station. You will finally trade guessing for knowing. The air thins more as you climb. It is subtle, but the effort starts to feel disproportionate. Your lungs are working, but the breath does not feel complete. You take in air, and it arrives like a half-delivered package. Your head pulse deepens behind your eyes, a slow drum beat that matches your steps. You try to ignore it. Ignoring it does not help. So you do the practical thing. You slow down, you breathe on purpose, in through the nose, out through the mouth, even though mouth breathing feels like pouring moisture out of you. You switch to in through the nose, out through the nose. It feels restrictive, but it saves water. Your scarf dampens slightly from your breath, and you hate how good that feels. You have created your own tiny, private humidity. Congratulations! You are now a walking terrarium in the driest non-polar desert on Earth. The saddle comes closer, and the pale hills show their texture. They are not sand dunes. They are cemented sediments, old lake beds and ash layers, hardened into slopes. The surface is crusty, fractured, and littered with angular stones that do not roll. This is not a place that has been rounded by water. This is a place that has been broken by time. You step over a scatter of whitish rocks that look like bones. They are not bones. They are salt and gypsum, minerals that precipitate when water evaporates and leaves its receipts behind. In another world, these would be shoreline deposits. Here they are altitude deposits, because this entire plateau used to be lower and wetter and closer to sea level. Then the Nazca Plate kept sliding under South America like a slow, stubborn credit card. Subduction, it is called. A word that sounds like paperwork. In human terms, it means the Earth is chewing one slab of crust under another and using the friction to build mountains. The Andes rise because the planet cannot stop itself. And as they rose, they changed the wind. They changed where storms could go. They made this inland side a shadow, a dry lee where moisture arrives exhausted. You do not feel that history as a lecture. You feel it as a headache and cracked lips. You climb into the saddle and the wind hits you full in the face. It is colder for a moment, then hotter again depending on the gust. Your eyes sting. You blink and the grit scrapes. You keep your eyes half-lidded, squinting into the brightness. At the top, you finally get a new view. A broad shoulder of land stretches upward, leading toward the volcanoes. And there, far ahead, is something too straight to be geology. A thin line against the sky. A tower, maybe. Or a fence post. Or a mirage that has learned architecture. You stare until your eyes water. The shape holds. It does not ripple like the blue lake did. It is real. It is also much farther than your hope wants it to be. You make the mistake of calculating time. If you keep this pace, you might reach it by late afternoon. If you keep this pace, you might still be walking when the sun drops. The desert does not care what your plan was. It cares what the sun is doing now. You start down the far side of the saddle into a slope of loose grit. Each step slides half a step. Your calves burn with the constant correction. You try to walk diagonally to reduce slipping, and the diagonal adds distance. You try to go straight down, and you skid. You pick the diagonal again, because skidding is a good way to fall, and falling is a good way to bleed. You reach flatter ground and pause, hands on knees, breathing shallow. When you straighten, you feel a brief dizziness, like the world shifted sideways. You stand still until it passes. A small part of you is embarrassed. A larger part of you is quietly afraid. Because you are not in a dramatic emergency. You are in a slow one. Slow emergencies are the worst kind because they let you argue with them. You open your pack and check your bottle. You do not shake it because the slosh will tell you something you do not want to hear. You hold it up, watching the water line through the plastic. It is lower than it should be. Not catastrophic yet, just relentlessly trending. You cap it again, and the click sounds too final. You look toward the tower shape again. It is still there. It is the only thing in this landscape that looks like intention. So you aim for it. You begin crossing the shoulder, and the ground changes again. Patches of reddish gravel appear. Then pale dust, then more black rock. The black rock forms lobes like frozen spills, old lava spread thin in sheets, now fractured. You are approaching the volcanic field, whether you like it or not. The wind keeps rising, as if the Pacific has decided to breathe inland. It comes from the west, from the direction where the ocean sits behind mountains you cannot see. That wind has traveled far over dry land. It arrives already desiccated. It does not bring weather. It brings abrasion. The grit taps your jacket like rain that cannot commit. Your lips sting with each gust. You lick them without thinking and regret it immediately. The moisture vanishes and leaves the salt behind. You stop licking your lips. You stop doing a lot of small things. Every reflex becomes a leak. You keep walking, eyes on the tower. The shoulder climbs gently, almost kindly, but the altitude makes it feel steep. Your breathing gets louder. In the thin air, sound carries oddly. Your own breath feels like someone else walking beside you. That is not comforting. You start to crave a cloud, not rain, just a cloud, a smear of shade, but the sky is a clean, hard blue, polished by dryness. The sun does not have to fight through anything. It hits you directly, like a spotlight with no stage. You pull your hood tighter, and the fabric flutters in the wind. The fluttering becomes a constant, soft, snapping sound near your ears. It is irritating in a way you cannot afford. Irritation burns focus. Focus is navigation. Navigation is survival, so you adjust the straps again, making it quieter. You keep moving. The tower grows. Slowly, it begins to resolve into something specific. A metal mast with instrument arms. Maybe a weather station. You feel a surge of relief so strong it makes you angry. Because relief does not hydrate you. It just makes you walk faster. You catch yourself speeding up and force the pace back down. Discipline is the only shade you get. As you approach the volcanic ground, the heat changes. It is no longer just the sun heating the air. It is the ground radiating back at you, like an oven door left open. The black rock drinks sunlight and refuses to give it back politely. It throws it upward. You feel it on your shins, your thighs, your hands. You lift your hand over the rock for a moment, palm down. You can sense the warmth rising, invisible, steady. The lava field is not huge from this angle. It looks like a patch you can cross in an hour, and maybe it is. But it is an hour on broken ankles and sharp edges. An hour where every step has to be chosen, and chosen steps are slow. You look for a way around. The edges are not friendly either. Loose ash and fractured stone form a perimeter of ankle traps. Going around might save your feet, but cost your time. Going through might save time, but cost your skin. You pick through the beginning of the field, testing each foothold. The rock is brittle in places, hollow sounding. In others, it is solid and jagged. The holes are deceptive. A boot toe can slide into one, and you can wrench a knee trying to pull free. You move like you are crossing a room full of caltrops. You realize you are clenching your jaw. You try to unclench it. Your teeth feel dusty. Your tongue feels thick. You swallow again, and it is harder than before. Not dramatic, just incrementally worse. Incremental is how the desert wins. The tower is closer now. You can see the glint of metal. You can see a fence line, faint, a rectangle against the ground. The station compound. It is real. It exists. You can almost taste the idea of water stored inside. That is when the wind shifts. A stronger gust slams into your right side, hard enough to make you stagger. Your pack catches it like a sail. The straps bite into your shoulders as the bag pulls. You take a quick step to stabilize, and your boot lands on a slanted piece of basalt. It rolls slightly, or maybe your foot slips on dust. Either way, your balance goes. You drop to a knee, instinctive, grabbing at the rock with your left hand. The basalt is abrasive, and you feel it scrape your palm through the glove. The glove saves you from bleeding. Barely. You hold still, waiting for the gust to pass. It does not pass. It keeps pushing, steady now, like the wind has decided to stay. You push yourself back up. As you rise, the pack shifts again. The bottle inside thumps against something hard. You hear it, a dull knock that is too loud in the silence. You freeze. You do not know yet what happened, but your body knows something happened. You pull the pack off carefully and set it down on a flatter patch of rock. Your hands are clumsy, not from cold, but from dryness and fatigue. You unzip the side pocket where the bottle sits. You lift it out, turning it slowly. At first, you see nothing. Then the sunlight catches a thin line along the bottom seam. A crack, not a hole you can plug easily. A stress fracture in the plastic, like a smile you did not ask for. You press it gently with your thumb. A bead of water forms, then slides. Your stomach drops. You tell yourself to stay calm. You tell yourself it is minor. You tell yourself you can patch it. Then another gust hits, and the bottle flexes in your hand. The crack widens. The bead becomes a trickle. The trickle becomes a steady stream. Water pours out, clear and indifferent, onto black rock. It hits the basalt and spreads for half a second. Then it vanishes. Not slowly, not politely. It flashes away into heat and dryness, like it was never yours. No puddle forms. No damp spot remains. The desert does not even look satisfied. It just continues being itself. You clamp your hand over the crack, squeezing hard. Water squirts around your fingers. You fumble for tape in your repair kit. Hands shaking now. Not panic shaking, just urgency. You wrap the tape around the bottle. Once, twice, 3 times. The tape sticks, but the plastic is slick and dusty. You wipe it and tape again. The wind tugs at the tape end, trying to peel it back. You anchor it with another wrap. Finally, the leak slows to a drip. You hold the bottle up and listen. The slosh is smaller, much smaller. You look at how much is left, and your throat tightens. It is not empty, but it is now a different problem. You have crossed a line. Before, you were rationing to be smart. Now you are rationing to be alive. You screw the cap on and put the bottle back in the pack like it is fragile glass. You sit on the warm rock for a moment because standing feels like wasted effort. The heat seeps through your pants. Your skin does not sweat, it just absorbs. You stare at the station compound again. It is still there, and now it is not a destination. It is a deadline. You do the math. Again, how long can you keep walking with this much water? How much will you lose just by breathing? How much will the wind steal from your lips? How much will altitude steal from your efficiency? The numbers are fuzzy because your brain is not built for this. Your brain is built to find rivers, to remember shade, to expect weather. Here, the brain has to operate like a calculator in a sauna. You stand up, you adjust your pack, the straps feel heavier, even though the water is lighter. You laugh once, a dry sound that surprises you. The humor is not joy, it is a reflex, the body's way of saying, yes, this is absurd. Congratulations. You have just paid for a lesson in wind physics with the only currency that matters. You look back the way you came. The notch is far behind, a cut in pale hills. You could retreat, but retreat means recrossing the lava field and then crossing the basin and then finding the flags you abandoned. It means walking longer with less water. Pressing forward is brutal. Going back is brutal and longer. The desert has arranged the options so you do not get a good one. You tighten your scarf again, and you choose the direct line. Not the safe line, not the planned line, the line that gets you to the station before dusk. You step deeper into the lava field. The rock crunches underfoot in places, brittle and sharp. In others, it rings faintly, like ceramic tiles. You keep your knees soft to absorb missteps. You keep your center of gravity low. You walk like someone crossing a floor that might collapse. Because in places, it might. Lava tubes can hide under thin roofs. Old channels can leave voids. A crust can span them like a cheap ceiling. Most of it holds, some of it does not. You test with each step, feeling for give. The wind continues, steady and mean. It scrapes grit along the rock, making a whispering sound like sandpaper. Your eyes keep watering. Despite everything, the water comes, then evaporates, leaving salt at the corners. You wipe with your sleeve, and the sleeve is dusty. The dust smears. You blink through it. The station grows. You can see the fence clearly now, metal posts with wire mesh. Inside, a concrete pad. A mast with instrument arms, anemometer cups, maybe? A solar panel angled toward the sun? No building, at least not a comforting one. Just a small utility box, the kind that holds batteries and electronics. You tell yourself there will be a water cache. There has to be. Humans cannot resist storing supplies, especially when they know a place is hostile. But another part of you, the experienced part, whispers that this is the Atacama. Humans come here to measure, to extract, to observe, not to rescue. You push that thought away, not because it is wrong, because it is useless right now. You focus on foot placement. Rock, dust, rock. Avoid the sharp ridge. Avoid the loose pocket of ash. Avoid stepping into a hole that looks shallow. Your pace is slow, but relentless. You feel time sliding. The sun is still high, but the angle is changing. The light becomes slightly warmer, slightly less white. That should be comforting. It is not. It means the day is moving on without you. You reach the far edge of the lava field and step onto paler ground. The change feels like stepping off a stove. The pale dust is cooler underfoot, but it is soft. Your boots sink a little, and each step kicks up a faint puff. The dust swirls in the wind and coats your pants. You are leaving a trail. Briefly, then the wind smudges it. Even your evidence does not last here. The fence is close now. You can see a gate. You can see a padlock. You can see the thin shadow of the mast stretching across the ground. Shadows are lengthening. That makes your stomach tighten again. Night in a desert is not just dark. It is cold, fast. The temperature starts falling before the sun is gone. Like the ground is already letting go. Your skin notices first a faint chill under the heat, an insult layered under another insult. You reach the fence line, and the wind hits the wire and turns it into a low, steady hum. It sounds almost musical if you ignore what it is saying. It is saying, you are small, and you are late. You step to the gate and you find the padlock hanging there, cheap and sun-bleached. It is the kind of lock meant to keep out curious goats, not determined humans. Congratulations! The first barrier between you and help is a piece of hardware store theater. You dig in your pack for the multi-tool, fingers stiff from dryness, and you wedge the flat edge under the lock body. You try to pry, and the metal flexes, but not the way you want. The wind shoves you sideways, and your boot skids in dust, and you have to catch yourself on the fence. The wire bites your glove, and you feel the vibration in your bones. You stop, breathe, and make yourself do this slowly. Fast workout here is how you bleed. You reposition the tool and twist, using the lock as its own lever. The shackle creaks, then pops open with a sound like a small bone snapping. You swing the gate inward, and it scrapes against gravel with a tired groan. Inside the compound, everything is painfully orderly. A concrete pad, a steel mast, instrument arms spread like a mechanical insect, a solar panel tilted toward the sun, still collecting light that is already leaving. A gray utility box, bolted down, with warning labels that have been sanded dull by years. There is no cabin. There is no shade structure. There is no heroic little water cooler waiting for you like a prize. It is a measurement site, not a shelter. You walk to the utility box anyway, because hope is stubborn, and you are human enough to keep trying. The latch is simple, and it opens with a dry click. Inside are batteries, wiring, and a smell like hot plastic and dust. It is the scent of a place that survives by not having anything soft. You scan for anything that resembles a water container, a jug, a bottle, even a cracked emergency canteen with stale plastic taste. There is nothing. Just silica gel packets tucked into corners, designed to keep the air even drier inside the box. You stare at them for a second, and a laugh crawls out of you, brittle and involuntary. Of course, the only moisture management system out here is designed to prevent moisture. You close the box and lean your forehead against the cool side for one long moment. The metal is not truly cool, but it feels cooler than the air. Your tongue presses against your teeth, and you can feel how thick it has become. This is not thirst like a movie. This is your mouth turning into a storage closet. You look at the mast, and then at the horizon, and then back at the mast. If you are going to be found, you need to be legible. The desert erases small things, but it cannot erase a silhouette if you use it right. You circle the pad and find a second box, a maintenance compartment half buried in dust. The lid is held down by 2 screws, and you remove them with shaking patience. Inside is a small collection of tools, spare bolts, cable ties, and 1 coiled antenna cable. You pull the cable out like it is a snake, and you see teeth marks along the outer jacket. Something small has been here, some nocturnal scavenger with no water and too much time. It chewed through the insulation, and the copper inside is exposed like nerves. Congratulations, the thing that might save you is broken by a creature that does not even care about your existence. You crouch in the lee of the concrete pad to get out of the wind. You spread your map on your knee, and the paper tries to lift away like a bird. You pin it with your forearm and check your coordinates against the station placard. The placard has numbers and letters, and they blur for a second, then settle. You blink hard, and your eyes sting, and you force your focus. You pull the radio out, and you tap the battery indicator. Not dead, not healthy, just hovering in that nervous middle state that makes you bargain with electronics. You connect the antenna cable anyway, because you do not have a better plan. The connector seats with a faint snap, and you tape over the chewed section, layer after layer. Tape is not engineering. Tape is prayer with adhesive. You stand up and hold the radio high, turning slowly, looking for a direction where the static changes. Terrain blocks signal, and you can feel the ridgeline behind you like a wall. You walk to the highest part of the pad, and you raise the antenna into the wind. The radio hisses, then crackles, then gives you a thin, warbling voice too distant to understand. Your heart kicks, and you almost squeeze the push to talk too hard. You breathe once, steady, then press. You say your coordinates slowly, twice, like you are leaving a voicemail for the universe. You describe your condition in plain words, not dramatic ones. Low water, wind, cold coming, radio intermittent. You release the button and listen. At first, there is only static. Then the voice returns, clearer now, clipped and tired. You catch a few words that matter. Copy, stand by, repeat. You repeat. Then the voice says it will relay, and you will be contacted again. It does not say when. It does not say how soon. It just acknowledges that you exist, and that is almost enough to make you sit down in relief. Almost. The battery indicator drops 1 bar, like it heard you feeling hopeful and wanted to correct you. You turn the radio off immediately. Silence floods back in, loud in its own way. Now, the problem changes shape. You are not lost. You are not walking. You are waiting. Waiting is not passive out here. Waiting is an activity with consequences. The sun is near the horizon now, and the light has turned gold and sharp. The volcanoes in the distance look closer in this angle, their shadows stretching like long black tongues across the plateau. You walk the inside perimeter of the fence, looking for anything else useful. You find a wooden pallet, sun-warped, half-buried in dust, left behind from some installation years ago. You drag it to the concrete pad, each pull sending a small cloud of powder into the air. The dust coats your sleeves and dries your skin further. Like flour on dough, you find a sheet of packaging foam, crumbling at the edges, and you take it too. Insulation is not comfort. It is survival math. You know what is coming. The same dryness that prevents clouds also lets heat escape fast. Water vapor in the air usually acts like a blanket, trapping warmth. Here, the blanket is missing. When the sun leaves, the ground will radiate heat straight into space, like an unpaid bill being sent back. You stack the pallet and foam on the lee side of the pad, where the wind is slightly less violent. You lay your jacket on top to block drafts, then sit back against concrete. The concrete has stored some heat, and it bleeds into your spine, faintly comforting. You take your bottle out. You turn it in the last light, watching the water line. It is low enough to make you swear quietly. You do not drink, not yet. You screw the cap tighter because you are not just conserving liquid, you are conserving options. The first stars appear before the sky fully darkens. They do not twinkle much. They just arrive, crisp, like someone switched on a million cold LEDs. The Milky Way becomes a smear, then a river, then a textured band of light. It is beautiful in a way that feels almost rude, because beauty does not fix anything. It just makes the danger look expensive. The wind keeps combing the fence wire, and the hum becomes a steady companion. You listen for other sounds, a truck, an engine, even the faint crunch of tires. Nothing, only wind and your breath and the small ticking noises of metal cooling. The mast contracts, a tiny ping, then another. It is the station settling into night, the way a ship settles into waves. You pull your scarf down for a second and try to wet your lips with breath. It does not work. You think about licking them again, and you stop yourself. Every reflex is a bad investment. You tuck your hands under your armpits because your fingers are the first to lose negotiation power. They go from useful to numb without asking your permission. You look at your gloves and realize the fabric is stiff with dust. It is not just on you. It is in you. Your nose is clogged and breathing through it becomes harder, which makes you want to mouth breathe, which makes you lose more water. So you breathe through the nose anyway, slow, controlled, like you are trying to breathe through a narrow straw. The cold arrives properly, not as a chill, but as a weight. It settles onto your shoulders and presses down, and you shiver despite your layers. Shivering burns energy. Energy burns water. Even if you are not sweating, so you fight the shiver, jaw clenched, thighs tensed, trying to generate heat without shaking. This is the glamorous part of desert survival, the part no postcard includes. You stare up at the stars to keep your mind from spiraling. The sky here is not just clear, it is exposed. You can almost feel the emptiness above you, the way the atmosphere thins into nothing. You remember vaguely that many observatories sit in this region for exactly that reason. Dry air, stable air, few clouds, minimal water vapor to blur the view. Astronomers come here to look outward, to study distant planets. Meanwhile, you are here trying not to become a footnote in a maintenance log. Somewhere out on the coast, fog is forming over cold Pacific water. It rolls in low and soft, a white blanket hugging the shoreline. Locals call it Camanchaca, a fog that can drip water if you trap it with nets. The desert can produce water, but only in sideways, sarcastic ways. Here, inland and high, that fog does not reach you. The inversion layer keeps it pinned near the sea, and the mountains keep everything else out. The Atacama is not just dry, it is engineered dry by ocean currents and air pressure and stone walls. You shift your weight on the foam, and the foam squeaks. The sound is loud enough that you freeze, listening. Nothing answers. No animals, no insects, no rustle of plants. The biological world has mostly opted out up here, and you cannot blame it. You pull your hood tighter and tuck your chin down. Your breath warms the scarf, and a tiny patch of dampness forms again. It is a small luxury, disgusting and precious. Your mind starts doing strange things. Not hallucinations yet, not images, more like thoughts arriving in the wrong order. You remember a glass of water you had days ago, and the memory feels physical. You remember the weight of a faucet handle, the sound of water in pipes. It is absurd the way your brain romanticizes plumbing when deprived. You catch yourself and push the thought away. Thinking about water does not make water. You doze in short bursts, head nodding, then jerking awake. Each time you wake, you think you heard something. Each time, it is just the fence humming, or the mast ticking, or wind shifting grit against the concrete. The night is long, and your sleep is thin, like the air. At some point, you take the smallest sip, not a gulp. A mouth wet, just enough to make swallowing possible. The water tastes like tape adhesive and warm plastic, and you hate it, but your throat stops scraping for a while, and that is worth the disgust. You tuck the bottle away again and sit still, letting your body cool and warm in small cycles. The stars rotate slowly, almost imperceptibly, like the planet is trying not to wake you. Hours pass. The cold reaches its deepest point. Your knees ache, and your hips ache, and your jaw aches from clenching. You curl tighter against the pad, trying to reduce exposed surface like an animal in a burrow. And then, without ceremony, the darkness begins to thin. Not sunrise, not yet. Just a slight lightening of the eastern sky, a grayness seeping in like spilled milk. You blink grit out of your eyes and look toward the horizon. The volcanoes become silhouettes again, their edges sharpening as the sky brightens behind them. Your body feels heavy, but your mind wakes up with a narrow, urgent clarity. Daylight is opportunity. Daylight is also heat, and heat is water loss. But daylight is how you become visible. You stand slowly, and your legs protest with pins and needles. Blood returns to your feet in a hot rush, painful and oddly satisfying. You pace within the fence for a minute, just to warm yourself and keep circulation moving. The wind is quieter at dawn, as if it needs time to reload. You check the radio battery. Lower, still alive. You do not turn it on yet. You wait for the sun to show itself, because you are about to use light as your loudest language. When the first edge of the sun clears the ridge, it hits the solar panel and flashes. The light is instant and hard, like someone flicked a switch in your face. You squint, then reach into your pack for the torn foil wrapper from the energy bar. It is crumpled and filthy, but it is reflective. It is a tiny mirror, a piece of trash that can become a signal. You climb onto the concrete pad, then onto the low support brace near the mast, careful not to slip. Your balance is worse than yesterday, and you can feel it. Dehydration and altitude make you clumsy in subtle ways. You hold the foil at an angle and try to catch the sun. At first, you just blind yourself. Then you find the bright spot, the concentrated beam, and you aim it toward the open desert. You sweep it slowly across the horizon, left to right, like a lighthouse. You do it in a rhythm. 3 sweeps, pause, 3 sweeps. If anyone is out there, a moving glint is easier to notice than a still object. You are turning sunlight into a distress call. You keep signaling until your shoulder burns. Then you rest, because burning energy is burning water. You sit in the lee of the pad again and scan the distance. The desert looks different in morning light, not kinder, just more honest. Every ridge and basin becomes visible, every subtle slope revealed. And with that honesty comes a quiet dread, because you can see how small the station is. From a few kilometers away, it would vanish into the palette of rock, a fence line, a mast, a little rectangle of human intention, swallowed by a continent of gravel. You imagine a truck driving the mining road you found yesterday, far out there. If it is not specifically coming here, it will never see you. It will pass behind a rise, then behind another, and the driver will never know you were sitting 10 minutes away in a depression. You stand again, and you climb the mast ladder a few rungs, just enough to get higher. The metal is cold and dries your gloves further. From up here, you can see more of the plateau. You can see the faint line of the mining road, a pale scar across the distance. You can also see dust devils forming, small spirals of grit, spinning like bored ghosts. They wander aimlessly, then collapse. Even the wind plays games. You climb down and check the radio. You turn it on for a moment. Static. Then, faintly, a voice again, not directed at you, just traffic. You press the button and transmit, short and controlled, conserving battery. You state your position again. You say you are at the station, sheltering, low on water. You release and listen. A pause. Then the voice returns, clearer, and this time it speaks your name or something close to it. It tells you to stay put. It tells you a vehicle is being dispatched from a facility near San Pedro, but terrain and distance mean hours. It does not promise a time, it promises intention. That is better than nothing. You turn the radio off again, heart beating too fast. You sit down and force yourself to calm. Excitement is a kind of heat. Heat is loss. You take another mouth wet of water. The bottle is almost insulting now, its emptiness louder than its contents. You roll the cap tight and tuck it away like a fragile secret. The sun climbs and the cold releases you. Not gently, it just stops. The air warms quickly, and the concrete pad goes from comforting to hot. You shift to the shadow of the utility box, the only real shade in the compound. It is small, and you have to sit with knees pulled up, pressed tight to fit inside it. Congratulations! Your deluxe desert accommodation is a rectangle of shade the size of a suitcase. You watch the horizon and continue signaling with foil every few minutes. Your routine becomes simple. Signal. Rest. Breathe through your nose. Do not move unless you must. Your body starts to feel strange. Not pain, more like your skin is a size too small. Your urine, when it finally comes, is dark and minimal. You hate seeing that evidence. It is your body telling you it is already rationing internally. You lick the inside of your cheek, trying to create moisture. Your saliva is thick, stringy, reluctant. Your thoughts slow again. You catch yourself staring at a rock for too long. You blink and force your attention back to the horizon. Hours stretch. The sun climbs higher, and heat shimmer returns. The air above the ground begins to tremble again, turning distant objects into wavering ghosts. The mirage effect makes the horizon look wet in places, a cruel repeat of yesterday. You watch a shimmering patch and feel a spike of anger, not because you believe it, because your brain still reacts automatically like a trained animal. You check the fence line again, then the mast, then the road in the distance. Everything is still. Then, far out near the line of the road, you see something. A faint smear against the pale ground. It could be a dust devil. It could be wind lifting grit. It could be nothing. You stand up too quickly, and your head spins, and you have to grab the utility box to steady yourself. You wait for the dizziness to pass, then squint again. The smear persists. It moves slowly, but in a way that seems directional. You climb the mast ladder a few rungs again, careful and deliberate. From up here, the smear becomes a plume, low to the ground, trailing behind something you cannot yet see. Your throat tightens, and you almost laugh again, because the desert has trained you to distrust your own hope. You signal with the foil, aiming at the plume. 3 sweeps, pause, 3 sweeps. You hold the beam on it as long as you can. Your shoulder burns and your hand cramps. But you keep going. The plume grows, then fades, then grows again as the vehicle dips behind low rises. So, it is not a dust devil, it is a truck. Or, it is a hallucination that has learned internal combustion. You climb down and sit, because if you stand and stare, you will burn energy for nothing. You keep signaling in intervals, like a metronome. The truck disappears behind a ridge. Minutes pass. It reappears, closer now, and the plume is thicker. You do not let yourself celebrate yet. You watch the plume the way you watch weather, with suspicion and math. You wait for the next dip behind terrain, because that is what the desert does. It hides things behind small rises and makes you doubt your own eyes. The plume grows again, and this time you see a darker shape under it, a vehicle low and boxy, bouncing slightly as it follows the track. It is not elegant. It is not fast. It is real. Your body tries to stand taller, like posture can summon rescue quicker. You stop that reflex, because standing in the sun is an expense. You crouch in the utility box shadow and signal again, slow and deliberate. You sweep the foil beam across the truck's direction, then hold it steady. The bright spot jitters with your hand tremor. You hate that your own dehydration has become part of the signal pattern. The truck drifts behind another shallow rise. The plume smears out, then cuts off, like someone muted it. You feel your heart pressing to your ribs, not from panic, from waiting. Waiting as wait. You climb the ladder a few rungs again. Because height is free visibility. Your boots clang softly on metal, and the sound feels too loud for this place. From up here, you can see the road segment the truck is using. It is not coming straight to you. It is moving along the mining track, then angling, then correcting. You understand why immediately. Out here, you do not drive toward a point. You drive toward what won't swallow your tires. The surface lies. It looks hard, then turns to powder. It looks flat, then becomes a shallow basin of flour dust that can bury an axle. Your eyes follow the truck as it pauses, then turns slightly. A small cloud blooms as the tires bite into softer ground. It lurches, recovers, then continues. That pause tells you a human is inside, scanning. That is the first time you feel seen. You wave the foil harder, then regret it, because urgency makes you clumsy. You force the motion back into rhythm. 3 sweeps, pause, 3 sweeps. The truck reappears fully now, and it is close enough that you can see the windshield flash. Sunlight flickers off glass, and for a second, you are signaling each other without meaning to. The truck slows again. A door does not open yet. It is still too far, and sound still does not carry. The wind has picked up just enough to scatter the engine noise into nothing. You realize something bitter. Even rescue is silent here. It takes a few more minutes for the truck to reach a point where the fence line becomes visible. You can tell because the truck's path changes. It stops following the old track and starts driving toward you. That is the moment you let yourself believe, and belief hits your body like a sedative. Your knees feel weaker, as if your muscles were only working on fear. You climb down carefully because falling at the finish line is the desert's favorite joke. You step to the gate and stand in the open, letting your whole silhouette be obvious. The truck grows larger, the dust plume thickening behind it like a tail. Now you hear it, a low engine note. Then, the crunch of tires on gravel. The sound is strangely emotional. Not because it is loud, because it is human. The truck rolls to a stop outside the compound, and the engine idles. For a beat, nothing happens. Then the driver's door opens, and a person steps down. They wear a hat and a scarf like you, because everyone here learns fast. They pause, look at you, look at the station, look at your posture. You can tell what they are doing. They are checking if you are upright, if you are coherent, if you are about to fall. You lift one hand in a small wave. It feels pathetic. It also feels like the best thing you have done in 2 days. They walk to the gate and you meet them there. Up close, you see their lips are cracked too. You hate how comforting that is. They say your name again, clearer this time. You nod because words feel expensive. They ask if you have water. You shake your head, then correct yourself. You have water. You just do not have enough water. You reach into your pack and show the bottle, wrapped in tape like a bad bandage. The person exhales, a short sound that is half laugh, half curse. Then they do the only thing that matters. They hand you a plastic jug. The jug is not chilled. It does not sparkle. It is the most beautiful object you have ever seen. You do not drink fast. Fast drinking can make you vomit, and that would be a cruel waste. You take a small sip, hold it in your mouth, let your tongue remember how to move. Then you swallow slowly. You feel it travel down your throat like a warm line of mercy. You take another sip, a little larger. Your stomach tightens. Then your brain clears by a small percent, like a lens being wiped. The person tells you to keep it controlled. You nod again, because nodding is still cheaper than talking. They step inside the compound with you, scanning for anything damaged. Their eyes go to the antenna cable you taped. They tap it with a finger, then give you a look. Not admiration, more like, yes, you did what you could with what you had. Congratulations, you have passed the lowest bar of survival. They check the utility box, the solar panel, the mast bolts. They are here for you, but they cannot help being maintenance-minded. That is how this place makes people task-oriented. Because sentiment does not fix anything out here. They ask you if you can walk. You say yes, and you mean it, but your legs disagree. Standing still has made them stiff. They offer an arm anyway. You refuse at first, reflexive pride. Then you accept, because pride is a luxury with a short shelf life. You step out of the gate, and the wind hits you full again. Now it feels different. Not kinder, just less personal, because you are no longer alone. The person leads you to the truck's passenger side. The truck is coated in dust, every surface dulled. There are jerry cans strapped to the bed, a shovel, a spare tire, and a sun-baked tarp. This is not a rescue vehicle built for comfort. This is a work truck that got assigned a human problem. They open the door, and you climb in. The seat fabric is hot, and the cab smells like fuel, sweat, and plastic. It smells like life. They hand you another bottle, smaller, and tell you to sip. You do. You hold the bottle like it might evaporate out of spite. They climb in and start the engine. The cab vibrates, and the sound fills your bones. When the truck begins to move, you feel an unexpected wave of dizziness. Not motion sickness, relief sickness. Your body is recalibrating. The driver watches you for a moment, then keeps their eyes on the terrain. Driving here is its own kind of navigation. There is no smooth line. There are only choices between bad surfaces. The truck bumps over gravel, then slides slightly in powder. The driver corrects, not sharply, but with practiced patience. The road they choose is not a road. It is a memory of repeated tires. It loops around shallow basins, avoids darker patches that might be softer underneath. You watch the ground through the window, and it feels unreal. Yesterday, every step was a negotiation. Now, you are moving without paying for each meter with your breath. You sip again, and you feel your mouth start producing saliva, reluctant but returning. Your lips still sting, but now they sting with the promise of healing. The driver speaks into a handheld radio. Short phrases, they report that they found you, that you are conscious, that you are drinking. A voice replies, tinny but present. Hearing it makes your chest loosen. You look back through the rear window at the station. The mast shrinks quickly, becoming a thin line again. Within minutes, it is just another vertical scratch against a world of horizontal. You understand, viscerally, why nobody should ever count on being spotted out there. Even with a truck, even with intention, the desert is too big. The driver keeps the truck angled toward the mining track because the mining track is the only stable sentence in this landscape. You hit a stretch where the ground changes from gravel to salt crust again. The truck's tires crunch like they are breaking ceramic plates. The driver slows. They avoid the seam lines, the soft voids between polygons. It is the same hazard you walked across, now scaled up to a vehicle. The crust holds, but you feel it flex under the tires in a way you do not like. The driver mutters something under their breath. You do not ask what. You already know. Even the ground is not committed to being ground. As you move away from the volcanic field, the air feels marginally thicker, not because the atmosphere changed, because you are losing elevation slowly, and your lungs notice before your brain does. Your headache eases by degrees. It does not vanish. It just stops pounding and becomes a dull reminder. The driver points with their chin toward the west. You follow their gesture, and in the far distance you can see something that looks like a low smear on the horizon. A pale band. At first, you think it is dust. Then you realize it is cloud or fog. Sitting low, the driver says one word, Kamanchaka, like it is a familiar nuisance. Fog over the coastal plain, trapped under the inversion layer. Moisture you can almost see, but cannot reach. You think of those fog nets you have heard about, stretched like giant spider webs to catch droplets. You imagine a whole industry built on tricking fog into behaving like rain. That is the Atacama's humor. Water exists here. It just refuses to fall in the normal direction. The truck rattles over a corrugated stretch. Washboard ripples. The vibration shakes your teeth, and you realize your jaw hurts from clenching all night. You relax it, and your mouth tastes like dust and tape adhesive and something metallic. The driver offers you a small packet of electrolyte powder. You pour it into the bottle and shake it, watching it swirl. The water turns slightly cloudy. You drink, and the taste is sharp and artificial. It feels like your body sighs. Now that you are not actively dying, your mind starts noticing other things. The light, the texture of hills, the way the desert is not uniform, but layered, pale deposits, then dark flows, then rusty gravel fans spilling from the mountains like frozen floods. Those fans are alluvial, the desert's old habit. When rain does happen, rare and violent, it does not soak in. It runs fast over hard ground, carrying rock and mud in a single brown rush. Then it stops, and the evidence sits there for decades. A dry channel, a scar, a fan of debris, a flood that happened once, remembered forever. The driver tells you they came from a small facility near San Pedro, a station that supports mines and sensors. They got the call, then had to decide which track was passable. They say it took longer than they wanted. They say this without apology, because apology does not change terrain. You look down at your hands, the gloves are dust stiff. The knuckles feel tight. You pull one glove off and look at your skin. Dry, pale, with fine cracks you did not notice before. Your hand looks older than it did yesterday. You flex your fingers slowly. They work. You put the glove back on. The truck climbs a small rise, and the view opens. You can see the basin you crossed, a broad, pale sweep. From this distance, it looks almost smooth. You know better. You know it is full of soft pockets and ankle traps and invisible seams. You also see the lava field as a dark patch, like a spilled ink stain. It looks smaller now. That is another trick. From far away, everything looks manageable. Up close, everything has teeth. The driver keeps the truck moving, following the mining track as it curves. The track leads toward a cluster of industrial shapes far ahead. Not buildings, not a town, more like scattered infrastructure. A few shipping containers, a fuel tank, maybe a small shelter. Human presence. Thin and technical, the truck reaches a point where the track intersects another. The driver stops and gets out, walking a few steps to inspect the ground. They kneel, touch the dust, look at tire marks, reading the desert like a page. They return and choose the left track. You ask why, finally finding a little voice. They say the right track crosses a low wash where sand has drifted. A truck can sink there if the wind has been busy. You nod because you remember the wind, busy like a person with a job. As you drive, the temperature climbs. The cab warms and your skin starts to feel itchy. Not sweat, just the sensation of salt and dust on you, finally noticeable. Your body is returning to normal complaints. You almost miss the clarity of emergency, where every sensation had a purpose. Now discomfort is just discomfort. The driver glances at you again and asks if you can keep sipping. You nod and sip. The bottle is already half gone, and you feel the urge to drain it. You do not. You have learned the desert's lesson. You do not spend water like you trust tomorrow. The truck passes a shallow depression where the ground is white and crusted. Salt. The driver says brine sits under some of these flats, trapped water that is not drinkable. Lithium brines, too, in some basins, mined and pumped. You look at the white crust and think about water that exists and still cannot help you. The planet loves irony. The driver points to a distant industrial scar on a hillside. A mine cut, terraced, with pale dust roads zigzagging up. They tell you that this is what brings people here. Copper, lithium, nitrates, borates. The Atacama is not just a desert, it is a pantry of minerals. Minerals that collected because water was scarce and evaporation was relentless. In wetter places, rain washes salts away. Here, they stay. They accumulate layer after layer until humans show up and decide that scarcity is profitable. The truck reaches the small facility. It is not much, a few containers, a low building, a shade structure made of metal that looks temporary, a water tank, blessedly large. You stare at it like it is a cathedral. The driver parks and another person steps out of the building, waving. They walk toward you quickly, then, slow as they get close, reading your condition, they ask questions, simple ones. Do you feel nauseated? Do you have headache? Did you urinate? Can you walk straight? You answer as best you can. They guide you into the shade structure. The shade is deep and immediate. It feels like stepping into a different climate. Your skin cools slightly, and you realize how hard the sun has been pressing. They sit you on a folding chair and hand you more water. This time it is cooler, from a tank, not chilled but not sun-hot. You drink, slowly obedient. They offer you a salty snack. You chew, and it tastes like cardboard again. But your body needs it. Salt helps you hold water. The desert makes you want to avoid salt because everything tastes like it. Your body disagrees. While you sit there, you listen to the facility sounds. A generator hum, metal clinks, voices. It is strange how quickly human noise becomes comforting. Not because it is pleasant, but because it is familiar. You can feel your pulse settle. Your hands stop trembling. Your thoughts arrive on time again. The person in charge, a practical voice, tells you that what happened to you is common here, not the dramatic part. The slow part? People underestimate how quickly dehydration happens when sweat evaporates invisibly. They say the Atacama steals water without announcing itself. In humid places, sweat accumulates and you feel wet. You feel loss. Here, you can be drying out while feeling dry the entire time. No warning, just consequences. You nod because you lived the lesson. They ask why you left the flagged route. You explain about the mining road, the way it looked like safety. They nod too, because the road trick is also common. A road implies traffic. Traffic implies help. But here, roads exist for machines, not people. A road can be a promise and a lie at the same time. They tell you you will rest here for a bit, then they will take you back towards San Pedro. Not immediately, because driving while you are still shaky is risky. The desert loves injuries that happen during recovery. You sit in the shade and let the heat bleed out of you. In the gap between sips, you become aware of how dry your eyes are. They sting even now, in shade. You blink, and it feels gritty, as if the dust has become part of your eyelids. Someone hands you saline drops. You tilt your head back and let the drops fall in. The relief is sharp, almost painful. Then soothing. You realize your body has been operating without lubrication. Not just water in your stomach, water everywhere. A working machine slowly losing oil. After a while, they have you stand. You stand carefully and feel your legs wobble, then stabilize. They watch you walk a short line, there and back. You do it, slow but straight. They seem satisfied. They tell you you were lucky. Lucky because you reached the station. Lucky because the radio transmission got through. Lucky because the truck was available. Lucky because the wind did not become a full sandstorm. Lucky because you did not break an ankle in the lava. Lucky because the Atacama did not need much to win. You nod and you do not argue. Luck is part of survival, and pretending otherwise is vanity. They load you into the truck again, this time with extra water in the cab. They tell you to keep sipping. They tell you not to fall asleep yet, to stay responsive. You watch the facility shrink behind you as the truck pulls away. It looks like nothing in the desert, a few boxes and a tank. And yet, it is a lifeline, a small island of logistics. Out here, logistics is what replaces nature. Nature did not build you a stream. Humans built you a tank. The truck follows the track towards San Pedro. As you descend, the air warms and thickens slightly. You start to notice the sky change. Not clouds, not rain, just a faint haze far off. It is pollution, dust, moisture, the messy breath of inhabited areas. You realize you have been in air so clean it felt sterile. Now you are returning to air with content. The driver talks more now because the emergency is done. They tell you about the weather station, how it is part of a network, how it sends data through satellite usually, how the antenna cable probably got chewed by a viscacha, a rabbit-like rodent that lives on rocks, a creature surviving in a place that tried to kill you in one day. It survives by being small, nocturnal, and adapted. You survived by being stubborn and lucky. The truck passes a cluster of low shrubs. You stare because you forgot plants existed. They look miserable, gray-green, spaced far apart. The driver says even here, with slightly more moisture, life is cautious. It grows low. It grows slow. It grows with defenses, leaves that reduce surface area, waxes that trap water, roots that spread wide for rare drips. Everything here is designed to lose as little as possible. You think of your scarf damp patch. Your mouth is starting to remember that it has a job other than cracking. Your lips still sting, but the pain has edges now, not a fog. Your tongue moves across your teeth and finds grit lodged everywhere. You spit once into the dust on the cab floor, and it lands like paste. The driver cracks the window a finger width to keep you awake. Dry air knifes in immediately, sharp and clean, like it was waiting. You close the window again, because even a little wind is a tax. The truck keeps descending in a long, patient arc. The landscape begins to show the first hints of drainage lines. Not streams, not water, just channels shaped like old arguments. Dry arroyos braid across the flats, then vanish into fans of gravel. Those fans look like somebody dumped truckloads of stone downhill and quit halfway. That is exactly what they are, just slower and with more geologic commitment. When rare rain hits, it does not soak. It runs. It runs hard over baked ground, and it carries everything loose with it. Then the sun returns, and the flood turns to a memory you can walk on. You stare at one channel as it crosses the track. It has banks, a little cut, a gentle curve, like it wants to be a river, but it is empty enough to make you doubt water ever existed here. The driver slows for it anyway, not because of water, because of sand. Fine material settles in these cuts, and tires can sink like they hit flour. You feel the truck dip, then climb out, suspension groaning. The driver says, almost conversationally, that people die in washes here. Not from drowning, from underestimating how fast a dry channel can become wet. It sounds impossible until you remember the desert's favorite trick. It does not do normal. It does nothing for years, then does everything in one afternoon. You ask what brings rain at all in a place built to refuse it. The driver tells you about the years when the ocean gets warm. El Niño, they say, like a name you should not say too loudly. Warm water changes air patterns, shifts moisture inland, breaks the usual rules. When that happens, the Atacama can bloom in spots. Not everywhere, not reliably, but enough to make headlines and sell optimism. A carpet of flowers in a place that usually produces only dust. It looks like mercy, but it is really just weather being inconsistent. The next year, the flowers die and the seed waits again. Congratulations! Even beauty here is on a schedule you cannot predict. The driver asks how you are feeling now. You test your head. The ache is smaller, but still there. You test your stomach. It feels tight, but stable. You test your hands. They shake less when you lift the bottle. You tell them you are better, and they nod like they expected that. Water works fast if you catch the problem before it gets deep. You glance down at your taped bottle in the pack. It looks like an injured animal you abandoned. You feel a weird, petty anger at it for breaking. Then you feel guilty because it did not break on purpose. The wind broke it, the rock broke it, your decision broke it. The desert just provided the conditions for mistakes to matter. The truck crests a low rise, and the horizon changes again. In the far distance, you can see a darker smear of land, not mountains, a ridgeline with a little softness around it, like haze. The driver says there is more moisture down there. Not much, but more. You will notice it in your skin first, they say. Your knuckles will stop feeling like paper. Your nose will stop bleeding when you blow it. Your eyes will stop grinding every time you blink. It is strange to think of these as luxuries, but after one night listening to metal tick in the cold, you have revised your definition of luxury. The truck passes a sign half buried in sand. It warns about mine traffic, heavy equipment, dust, speed. The words are bleached and the metal is scarred with wind. Every sign out here looks like it has been punished for existing. The driver points to a set of tire tracks that veer off the road. They cut into open ground, then stop suddenly. No return marks, no loop back, just a dead end in the gravel, like a thought that ended mid-sentence. The driver says someone tried to shortcut and learned the surface was soft there. Maybe they got out. Maybe they dug. Maybe another truck pulled them free. Or maybe they walked and the desert kept the vehicle like a souvenir. You look for the stranded car, but you cannot see it. The desert is good at hiding evidence once it stops moving. That is part of its power. It does not just threaten you. It threatens your story. It threatens to make it look like you were never here. The driver checks the fuel gauge and the water cans without being asked. They do this the way you check your pulse. Out here, supplies are not items. They are lifelines with numbers. You realize your own pack was underbuilt for how quickly plans can fracture. The original assignment: walk to the station, check a line, return. It was tidy, like an office task wearing hiking boots. Then you made one detour, and the world rearranged itself. Detours are normal in most places. In the Atacama, a detour is an alternate timeline. The track begins to show more human scars now. A culvert pipe under the road, placed for water that might come once a decade. A line of poles running toward a mine, carrying power to machines that never sleep. The poles are tilted slightly, leaning away from the prevailing wind. Even infrastructure develops posture here. The driver tells you the wind can strip paint off metal. It can sand down bolts, loosen fittings, abrade cables. That is why the station's labels looked worn, like they had been scrubbed. Wind is slow violence, the kind that does not need drama. You remember how the fence wire hummed all night. A sound so steady you almost forgot it was caused by friction. Friction, you think, is the desert's true religion. Everything rubbing away, grain by grain, year by year. A landscape made by erosion, but preserved by lack of water. It is a strange combination, and it produces a place that looks frozen in time. Frozen, except for the fact that it is still moving under your feet. The driver starts talking about the ground beneath this road. Old marine sediments in some areas, volcanic ash in others, salt deposits in basins. The Atacama has layers like a cake, except the frosting is arsenic and regret. They mention nitrates, the old saltpeter boom. In the 19th century, people came here and built towns on nothing. They mined a mineral crust that formed because nothing washed it away. They shipped it out to make fertilizer and explosives, fertilizer to grow crops elsewhere, explosives to break rock elsewhere. The desert fed distant fields and blew up distant wars. And the towns that grew around that trade, many of them died. When synthetic nitrates arrived, the mines closed, people left, and the desert kept the buildings. Ghost towns with wooden beams dried into place, never rotting. The Atacama is so dry, it preserves abandonment like a museum exhibit. You imagine walking into one of those towns at night. Empty rooms, intact wallpaper, dusty bottles still on shelves. Not haunted by spirits, haunted by economics. Congratulations. Even the past here does not decompose. The truck hits a patch of washboard again, and your teeth chatter. The driver apologizes, not for the roughness, but for the timing. They say, the road maintenance budget is not a priority. They say mines fix what mines need and ignore the rest. You think about priorities and how the desert forces them. Nobody spends money to make a place comfortable that was never meant to be. They spend money to extract what the place is hiding. Copper veins, lithium brines, borate crusts, water too, ironically, pumped and trucked to keep operations running. The driver tells you some mines desalinate seawater and pipe it up. Imagine that, they say, dragging ocean water uphill through hundreds of kilometers of rock. All that effort, just to rinse minerals out of other minerals. You picture a pipeline climbing the Andes like a metal vine, a monument to refusal. The planet refusing rain, humans refusing to leave. Your throat tightens again, and you sip, carefully. The water is doing its work, but it cannot reverse exhaustion instantly. You feel your body like a drained battery recharging in the cold. Not full, just functional. The driver asks you to describe the station condition for the report. You tell them about the chewed cable, the lack of water cache, the desiccant packs. They snort at that and say of course there was no water. An automated station assumes the only thing alive nearby is data. They say the network is designed for instruments, not people. People are considered temporary visitors, like weather events. You swallow that thought and feel something colder than the air, because it is true and it is familiar. Most places on Earth are not built for you. You build on them, you borrow them, you pretend they are yours. Then the planet reminds you, casually, that ownership is imaginary. The truck's radio crackles with a short message. The driver answers, confirms your status, confirms the route. They mention they will stop at a point with better medical support. Not a hospital, just a clinic. Maybe a base with trained staff. You nod, but your mind catches on the word stop. Stopping is strange now, because movement equals progress, and progress equals safety. But you remember the station night, how movement was dangerous too. In this desert, safety is not about motion. It is about being where logistics can find you. The terrain begins to show color changes. Not just beige and black, but hints of red, rust, and pale green. Mineral staining on rock faces, thin crusts of algae and rare, damp pockets. You pass a shallow depression where the ground looks darker. The driver says sometimes there is moisture trapped under a hard cap. Not enough to drink, but enough for microbes. A whole hidden ecosystem, too small to see, surviving on almost nothing. Scientists come here for that, the driver says. They study extremophiles, organisms that live in conditions that feel impossible. They use the Atacama as a Mars analog because it is the closest the Earth gets. The thought makes you laugh quietly because you almost died in a Mars simulation. Congratulations, you have had an authentic extraterrestrial experience. You look out at the hills again, and you can almost see it. The way the sky is too clear, the way the ground is too bare, the way the sun feels less filtered, more direct, like an accusation. If you replace the volcanoes with crater rims, it would look plausible. Your brain, now calmer, starts filing memories into categories. The flagged route was a human attempt to impose order. The mirage was physics laughing at your senses. The lava field was geology reminding you it can be sharp and young. The station was technology reminding you it is not kindness. And the night was astronomy reminding you how thin your atmosphere is. Each part of the journey had a different personality, but they all belonged to the same system. Dryness enforced by stone and ocean. You ask the driver how people who live here do it. Not miners with trucks and tanks, but locals. Older settlements. The driver says most people do not live out on the flats. They live where water does exist, in oases fed by Andean meltwater. San Pedro itself exists because of groundwater and old river deposits. Water comes from high peaks, snow and ice that fall on the eastern side. It infiltrates, travels through porous layers, emerges where geology allows, a slow, hidden plumbing system, moving water without showing it. When you stood on the solar crust, you were standing on the evidence of that system. Salts. Concentrate where water evaporates. Evaporates, but does not disappear. It leaves minerals behind like fingerprints. The driver says the indigenous peoples here understood that long before trucks. They built around springs, managed scarce water carefully, terraced fields, canal systems, storage, not abundance, but stability. Modern extraction threatens that because pumping brines can change groundwater flow. Lithium operations can lower water tables, dry wetlands, stress flamingo habitats. Yes, flamingos, the driver says, like they enjoy watching your disbelief. In some salty lagoons, brine supports algae. Algae supports tiny crustaceans, and those support flamingos, elegant and ridiculous, standing in water that could pickle you. The Atacama does not do simple categories like dead or alive. It does gradients, thresholds, margins. Life clings where chemistry allows it, not where comfort exists. The truck passes a shallow lagoon, just a smear of water in the distance. You might not have noticed it without the driver pointing. It reflects sunlight like a sheet of metal. A few pale shapes stand at the edge, too far to identify clearly. Maybe birds, maybe rocks. Your eyes want it to be birds, because that implies a system. A system implies predictability. Predictability implies you are not insane for trying to survive here. The driver does not stop, because stopping wastes time and fuel. And fuel out here is just another form of water, if you think long enough. Energy equals movement. Movement equals access to supply. Everything is a conversion. The track improves slightly, becoming more compacted. You see more signs of traffic, fresher tire prints, occasional litter, a plastic strap, a piece of tarp, a crushed can. Even garbage feels like a relief. It means humans are near enough to leave mistakes behind. The driver tells you to keep drinking, but not too fast. They say dehydration recovery is not just water. It is salts and sugars and time. Your kidneys, they say, are trying to catch up. You nod, and your mind drifts to the night again. The way the cold came fast because there was no humidity blanket. That same effect is why observatories love this place. Low water vapor means less infrared absorption, a clearer window to space. But that also means your heat radiates away like money in a broken pocket. You think about how your body fought 2 wars in one day, first against heat, then against cold. You were cooked, then refrigerated like leftovers. The driver notices you rubbing your hands. They reach into the center console and toss you a cheap lotion bottle. They say it helps with cracked skin, and it is standard gear here. You squeeze some onto your knuckles, it feels greasy, and immediately dust sticks to it, making a paste. Still, the sting eases. Congratulations! You are moisturizing in a desert that wants you desiccated. The truck approaches a junction with a more formal road, not paved, but graded, wider, with signs that look newer. There is a small checkpoint shack, empty right now. A gate arm is lifted, abandoned to the wind. The driver slows, scans, then continues through. Beyond the checkpoint, the road begins to show actual maintenance. Gravel packed, fewer washboard ripples, clearer edges. You feel the difference in your spine immediately. Your body relaxes a fraction. Relaxation makes you drowsy, and the driver notices. They tell you to talk, to keep your brain engaged. So you ask about the sky, about why it looks so close last night. They say it is not closer, just less interrupted. In humid places, you are looking through water vapor and haze. Here, you are looking through almost nothing. Stars do not twinkle as much because the air is stable. And because you are high, above some of the thickest atmospheric mess, you say it felt like the universe was watching you. The driver says the universe watches everyone. It just usually has curtains. You laugh, and it hurts your lips. The driver gestures toward a distant peak, snow-capped. That, they say, is where the water begins. Snow you cannot drink directly because getting there would kill you differently. But it feeds the aquifers, the springs, the oases. The Atacama's survival is borrowed from altitude. You think of the Andes again as a wall that steals storms, yes, but also a wall that stores water and ice. The same mountains that create drought also create the only supply. The planet never gives without taking. The road begins to descend into a broader valley. You start seeing more vegetation, still sparse but real, low shrubs, then occasional taller bushes, then the faint line of a riverbed. Dry right now, but the soil looks darker, more coherent. The driver points out small farms, rectangles of green that look absurd. Alfalfa, maybe, or quinoa grown with irrigation. Each plot is a negotiated treaty between human desire and hydrology. You pass a small cluster of buildings, a settlement with a few trees. The trees look like celebrities here, tall and attention-grabbing. Their leaves flicker in the wind, and you feel jealousy. They are transpiring water into the air like it is normal. Your own skin is still learning how to do that again. The driver pulls into a compound with a shaded awning. A clinic or a base, a place with a water tank and a radio mast. Two people step out, one with a medical bag. They approach with calm faces that have seen this before. You climb out slowly, legs stiff, and the ground feels weirdly soft. Not actually soft, just less hostile than lava. They guide you under shade and sit you down again. They take your pulse, check your eyes, ask you questions. Simple ones that measure brain function without sounding like it. What day is it? Where are you? What is your name? You answer, irritated at how basic survival makes you prove yourself. They check your lips, your tongue, your skin pinch. They nod and say mild to moderate dehydration, improving. They say altitude stress too, but you are descending, so it will ease. They give you more electrolyte mix and tell you to keep sipping over hours. They warn you not to celebrate with a huge drink. Your body, they say, is like dry soil. Pour too much too fast, and it runs off instead of soaking in. You understand that metaphor more than you want to. While you sit there, you overhear the staff talking about weather. A forecast mention, winds increasing later, typical. No rain mentioned, because rain is not a normal topic here. But one person says something about high-altitude thunderstorms over the Andes. Not here, but there. You feel a faint chill at the thought. Thunderstorms that you will never see can still shape your water supply. All of this depends on distant events. The clinic person asks if you remember the flagged route coordinates. You try, and your mind produces fragments. A bearing, a ridge notch, a basin. You describe it anyway because they want to check on the station later. Not for you, for the equipment, for the network, the data stream. The planet is being measured continuously, and your near death was an interruption. You do not resent the station for being indifferent. Indifference is honest. It never promised to care. Humans are the ones who keep expecting the world to have feelings. They offer you a wet cloth for your face. It is cool and damp, and you press it to your cheeks. The sensation is almost overwhelming. Not pleasure exactly, more like your nerves waking up and complaining. You wipe dust off your eyebrows, your eyelids, the bridge of your nose. The cloth comes away brown. It feels like removing a layer of the desert from your skin. But you know the dust is deeper than that. It is in your hair, in your pores, in the seams of your clothes. It will come out slowly over